All right, welcome into the first inaugural episode of a great thing that we are trying to start here. We're calling it Stay Tuned. It came up with a lot of debate over, I don't know, probably a month. We were trying to get this off the ground for a long time now, and we were finally being able to do that. It's basically called Stay Tuned because we talk about a lot of different things at a lot of different points. And so at this point, it's basically just stay tuned. Hopefully, we'll get to the point, but you never know. So for this first inaugural episode, I am Joe. We have Mike and Brayden with us today. We are going to be discussing a lot of different things, mainly about ourselves and what we truly do enjoy. But to start it all off, we are going to start with what we have currently watched, any things that are new in the news that we want to talk about, stuff like that. Myself, I started out, we all are back at school, if we are at school. Myself and Brayden are members of colleges, and then Mikey, you do your own thing, which is great. And so we're back at school. So we went together to watch a certain movie, which we will hopefully dive into in a different episode. My two movies that I watch, and I'm currently watching one right now, Ferdinand, based off the book Ferdinand and the Bull, or Ferdinand the Bull. It's not a great movie. It's not a bad movie. John Cena looks exactly like the bull he's playing. That's all I got to say. 2 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. That's it.
I
To tell you
remember.
everything you need to know about that movie, they show
Yeah.
it in school.
Yeah, I remember
Yep.
watching it in Spanish class, and then that's it. I remember nothing else about the movie other than watching it in Spanish class.
Yeah.
Yeah, that John Cena's in it.
Exactly. And then my last movie that I completed was Alien, which kind of ties into this little poster that is behind me. This poster is a scratch-off poster of different movies from IMDb's highest rated list, but also the community's highest rated list. So Alien was one of the movies on there. I decided that was going to be my first movie that I scratched off. So I watched that, and then also for that poster is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I am currently watching. So
Oh, very nice.
that's going to be a 5 out of 5 coming soon.
Have you
I-
seen the first Alien before?
I have not. This is my first time watching it.
Really great movie.
It's definitely it's a good one. It's
phenomenal.
definitely
It is good.
like a good foundation to watch.
yeah.
It is. It's very good. So I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Nothing too crazy. It's not like anything that I love, but it's still really cool. So yeah, that's my recent stuff there on Letterboxd. As we go through episodes and stuff, you will tend to learn that Letterboxd is a fan favorite app, mainly specifically for myself and Brayden. Mikey uses it as more of a humor tool. Um, so we'll get into that more as time goes on with more episodes.
All right. As he said, we like to talk about what's going on right now. So a couple trailers dropped today. I'll just kind of run through the more important ones that I saw. New Blumhouse movie trailer dropped. It's called Woman in the Yard, and it serves as a great reminder that aside from the Black Phone with Ethan Hawke, we haven't gotten a good Blumhouse movie all the way back since like 2012 when Sinister dropped, also an Ethan Hawke movie. Just
hold
to
up.
remember, do not talk about Five Nights at Freddy's.
Hold up. One, we had Five Nights at Freddy's, which is an absolute masterpiece, Brayden. I don't know how you can forget about that. But two, wasn't Longlegs Blumhouse?
No.
Okay, I feel like there was a movie that we saw in theaters that was Blumhouse.
That was the Black Phone.
No, besides from
years
Black
ago.
Phone. I remember seeing another Blumhouse film in theaters.
When was the
with
last
you,
time
Brayden.
I would have dragged you to go see
Okay.
a horror movie?
Wasn't the Megan movie Blumhouse?
Yes.
Yeah, we
I remember
didn't
going to
watch
see that. It's
They have not been on a
Um,
hot streak as of late, but
let's
neither
see.
have most horror movies in general.
I remember they had that Imaginary this year. That was I heard really
Yeah,
bad things about
Neither
that.
was Night Swim.
Oh, Night Swim too. Yeah, I heard bad things about that as well.
They dropped a trailer for this movie called The Alto Knights. It is a true story gangster mobster movie. It is basically, they're kind of doing the Tom Hardy legend thing. Two brothers played by the same character. Robert De Niro is going to play a mobster, and his
I
brother
did see those
who
photos. Yeah,
is some sort of politician or just Richie Rich public figure.
right.
It looks interesting. They didn't give a release date for it. I'm assuming it comes out at some point this year. I don't know if it's a direct-to-streaming movie, but I mean, it's Robert De Niro gangster movie. You definitely should give it a watch. I'm assuming. I'm waiting for obviously the next trailer,
Right.
and then a teaser trailer for the actual trailer, which I'm assuming will come out this Friday, was for the Until Dawn video game adaptation. I think I'm the only one here who's played the game.
The trailer came out today.
It was a
Or was it a
trailer
teaser?
for the trailer. For those who don't know, the Until Dawn game is a classic cabin in the woods, you get locked in, monsters in the forest horror game, but it's a choose your own adventure, but is a truly your actions will affect what happens 5 hours later into your run, and every little thing you do, whether how you talk to people matters, and I love the game so much, and they basically explained it as a mixture between Cabin in the Woods, the movie with like Chris Hemsworth and Sigourney Weaver, crossed with like Happy Death Day, Groundhog Day, where the characters are going to have to figure out how to survive until dawn, but every time someone dies, based off the choices they make, they have to relive and go back to the starting point and see if they can make it through the whole night. So I don't know if they're going to go with like the whole Wendigo aspect. A lot of the characters look different. They didn't bring Rami Malek back or anything, but it looks very promising, and the director is very passionate about this, so I am excited.
Good, good.
They also brought that creepy guy from the Call of Duty commercials that they keep seeing.
Oh, okay.
He's going to be in it, and he is great in video games, so I'm very excited.
All right, then. Mikey, anything recent?
I read in the newspaper that the fire marshal of our general area is investigating into 9 exploding mailboxes. It's not something to laugh about. Somebody had, I guess, placed some sort of explosive device into a mailbox. I don't know. I sent it to Brayden. I sent you a picture this morning, and I don't think you looked at it because I didn't get any sort of reaction. So I figured
I did look at
apparently,
it. I don't have one of those single mailboxes though, so I just kind of did away with it.
That's pretty funny.
I don't know. I was just like, I think that this needs to be mentioned.
Right.
Exploding mailboxes.
Yeah, exploding mailboxes. Well, in this, people might be exploding their mailboxes because we are going to give our top 5 actors, our top 5 actresses, our top 10 or our top 5 directors, and then our top 10 movies. This is all personal opinion. When we get to those certain lists or anything, if anyone has any, honorable mentions or if they have any reasons as to why they put things there, we go over that, but this is pretty much there so that way, as the inaugural episode, people get to know who we are, what we like, and why we are here to talk, and why we are staying tuned on what is more to come. So I'm going to get started off here. We're going to start with our top 5 actors. So starting from 5, going to 1, my number 5 is Samuel L. Jackson. He's in a lot of good stuff. He's in Star Wars, my favorite franchise, which we'll get into later. And then also in Avengers stuff as Nick Fury. But then he also has those kind of standalone things and kind of appearances and random stuff. He has he's in the Django Unchained. He then has Pulp Fiction. He's in a lot of cool stuff. He is in a lot of different things. He's Frozone. Like, a lot of cool stuff. You gotta love Samuel L. Jackson, especially for his kind of colorful language that he likes to use in a lot of his films. So, personally, he's at number 5 for me. Any comments on Samuel L. Jackson being a 5? Nothing at all.
Understandable.
Good pick.
All right.
I get it.
Good. Number 4, we have Matt Damon. One of my favorite movies, The Martian, is what he stars in. There's also random ones that he's in, like We Bought a Zoo. Like, you wouldn't think he'd be in that, but it's kind of a good movie. It's not like a great movie, but it's good. And then he's in a lot of older stuff, like Good Will Hunting. But then he's been in the now and all that kind of stuff going in and out. So he's my number 4. My number 3 is Matthew McConaughey, mainly only for Interstellar, but he's still really good in in Dallas Buyers Club and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's just really good. And, of course, he's a Texas fan. I love college football stuff, so him being horns down. And so I love him in the sporting world. So not only as an actor, but just also as like a person, he's a great guy. Yeah. Number 2, one guy that every single movie that he's in, I'm really attracted to, is Brad Pitt. You have 7, Ocean's 11. You got all these great movies that he's in at Fight Club, and then he keeps coming up in new stuff. He's in Wolves, like Bullet Train is really good. I don't know if you guys have seen Bullet Train, but I really love Bullet Train.
Love it. I think I have the DVD somewhere in my room, but I couldn't honestly tell you.
We're definitely going to have a lot of overlapping people on these
A
lists.
stack.
Yeah, and that's probably why we're friends, is because we have so many common interests.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this episode is more for anyone who listens, so they can expect or they can get a base foundation for what kind of garbage is going to come out for the rest of our show.
Exactly. And then my number one is Tom Hanks. He's so good in a lot of different things. You have him as Forrest Gump, one of my favorite movies. You have him in Toy Story as Woody. You have him in a lot of different things. So Tom Hanks is my number one.
We'll get into that later. I'll bite my tongue.
So I'm a little surprised that you had Matt Damon on there. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like Matt Damon as an actor. It's just I never really thought that you would have. I don't think I've ever really heard you talk about like really Matt Damon. You know, like
Right. I just he's one that I don't know why, but I find him funny in a lot of his stuff,
I get it,
and yeah.
I mean, in going to Matthew McConaughey, you know, you and I, Joey, you know, Irish fans, hence that's why
Exactly.
horns down. You know,
Horns
not a
down.
fan of the SEC. Horns down. I mean, look, great college football conference, but you know, as a fan of a team who's historically independent, you know, I don't really, you know,
Conferences
I don't
aren't-
really get into conferences, you know. Then again, I also am a Michigan State fan, so and there's
Some
Big Ten,
conferences
so
like the
very
Big Ten are just ruled by teams like Michigan every year, go blue, and are too iconic to change. I do think it's a little interesting that you put Matt Damon on there. So going with my list, number 5, we have Matt Damon. I have to agree with you. He's
Good
just
pick.
one of those like in a lot of things actors.
Yeah.
He's funny. He's good in a lot of stuff. We Bought a Zoo is an underrated feel-good pick. People don't talk about it enough. We need to bring that movie back into the light. But no, I just always appreciate a good Matt Damon film. The Martian is great. At number 4, I have John Bernthal. The dude is in everything.
He is in a lot.
There is a good chance you could start a movie and flip a coin, and John Bernthal is gonna be in it, and then you can flip a coin on whether he's gonna die by the end of the movie.
Yeah,
And he probably does.
Actually, that one you probably should do. Flip the coin for is. Hey, John Bernthal's in this movie. Let's flip a coin to see if he dies.
Or has previously died and is only appearing in flashbacks.
That or
yeah.
arrested too. He gets arrested in a lot.
He's
of
great in a lot of stuff. People know him a lot for like Punisher or Wolf of Wall Street. I love him in obviously Shane in The Walking Dead. He's in The Bear. He's in Wind River. He's in The Peanut Butter Falcon. I could go on and name
Sicario
stuff
Right.
he is. He's in Sicario.
One of our favorite films.
He needs more leading roles because I do think he's a very underrated actor in his generation. For number 3, Bradley Cooper is one of my favorite actors. He is a guy who can do funny and serious. We've all seen The Hangover,
Yeah.
so we know the funny aspect. We've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, so we get the voice acting that he obviously can do. He can sing in A Star Is Born. He has this movie called Burnt that I religiously watch once or twice a year. And it's essentially if Gordon Ramsay and Whiplash made a baby. And it's not a very good movie at all, but I love him in it, and I constantly go back to it all the time.
All right. Respected pick.
So he's always up there for me.
Yeah.
At number 2, I have Ryan Gosling. All jokes, internet jokes aside,
He's literally me.
And I
Thank you for putting me on your list, Brayden.
You're so welcome. I just love seeing him in anything. I've never seen a Ryan Gosling role where I was like, wow, that wasn't just fun at the very minimum. But he, like, everyone makes the jokes from I'm Just Ken or The Nice Guys, but he has this movie called Ides of March, or Ides of March, however you pronounce it. And he's a political campaign assistant to George Clooney running for, I believe, governor or senator, something like that. And it's more of like a sabotaging movie, but it gets very dark and twisted, and he's caught up in the middle. And I really love his performance in that. I think it's one of his most underrated. And then number 1, Joey already had him on his list, Brad Pitt. I mean,
Heck yeah.
I don't know how many Oscars this guy has, but it seems like he should have double whatever the number is.
Yep.
I do like how towards the end of this career that we're seeing, he is doing a lot more of the just random funny projects like Bullet Train or Wolves, because we've seen so much of the serious of Seven and the Ocean's movies and things like Troy or World War Z where he can do action.
Yep.
He's probably the most consistent actor in all of Hollywood.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that statement.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll be honest with you guys, I think my list might be the most different compared to your guys. You guys are kind of similar, right? I mean, I got some overlapping people. By that, I mean, I have like one. But I think before I get into mine, I think Brayden was thinking about it when you said you're number one, Joey. But I don't know, man. Tom Hanks, I get it.
It's not Tom Hanks.
But
That he said that made me bite my tongue.
It was
Really?
Forrest Gump.
It was
Forrest Gump.
one of
Oh,
my favorite movies.
oh.
It is.
Okay. Well,
I know you guys
mean,
don't like it.
I don't like Forrest Gump. I think Tom Hanks okay, but I think I'll be honest with you, seems like a nice guy. I just think he's a little overrated.
He has
It's
a
just-
lot of great roles that I
just-
really do.
Yeah, I mean, don't get
like,
me
but-
wrong. He's got a lot of great roles. It's just something about him as a whole that, for some reason, like I think probably, in my opinion, his greatest role was when he played Mr. Rogers. What was that movie called?
Yes,
He
he
played
Oh,
that phenomenally.
Yeah.
Between
then
that and probably Captain Sully, those are like probably his best two
Yeah.
roles.
Castaway is pretty good.
I haven't seen that.
It's very good.
But,
What do we got, Mikey?
I'm gonna just list off a few honorable mentions first because these are some actors who I really, really wanted to put on this list, and I like them a lot, but I just not in my top five. As you said, your number five, Joey, Sam Jackson is one of my
Heck yeah.
honorable mentions. Keanu Reeves, gotta love him. Ryan Gosling, I said, Ryan Reynolds. How can you dislike Ryan Reynolds? He's
Yeah,
fun.
how can you not like it?
Timothy Olyphant. He's in
Good
a lot
pick.
of things himself. Not to mention, this isn't the reason why he's on my honorable mentions, but I did start watching Justified not too long ago, and it really made me realize that he's a phenomenal actor. And a movie that I really recommend, The Girl Next Door. He plays Kelly
No.
in that film.
No.
It's phenomenal.
We do
No. No, unironically, it's actually a great movie. I do recommend. And
All right.
Sterling K. Brown, who's just not enough things.
Billy King Brown is a very good pick.
I
Didn't
yeah,
think of that.
He's very good in American Fiction that just came out
Mhm.
last
Yeah.
year. I really liked him in that.
I mean, if you ever just want to get a look into his acting abilities, you just watch the one Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode in which he's being interrogated by Peralta.
Yes.
The way he plays that role is perfect, and I think he
I
needs to do
agree.
more things.
He's
But
also
actually,
one of the best cameo actors in the 15 seasons of Supernatural.
oh yeah,
He's fantastic in that
Yeah.
show.
yeah. But to kick things off, my number five is Steve Buscemi. Reservoir Dogs, which is one of my favorite movies, Pulp Fiction,
Yeah.
in which he plays the Buddy Holly waiter and has a very, very memorable role. How can you forget about Grown Ups?
Yeah,
You know-
can't forget about grown-ups. Can't forget about it.
He's standing like this because he's in a full body cast, or when he starts drinking the beers and while Chris Rock's son in the movie is like doing the driving test. So how can you forget about him? Or the iconic Spy Kids line? Do you think God stays in heaven because he too fears what he created?
Good
It
line.
is a good line. Coming
He's
in, I'm gonna
fantastic in Fargo as well.
yeah, which I actually have not got a chance to watch yet because
Definitely recommend.
I don't know where I can watch it on.
Google, buddy. It's free.
It's not free on Google.
No, Google's a free
I know.
search engine.
I know, but I don't. I think I looked it up not too long ago, and I didn't have any of the streaming services which it was on. The last time I knew if it was on like HBO Max, which I don't have anymore, so I can't. Coming in number 4 though is Henry Cavill. Right, every time I see him, I love every role that he's in, but this is actually more of a just outside of acting. Right, you watch interviews of him, and he just seems like such a fun guy.
Right.
He's so nice. Like his enthusiasm of when he talks about Warhammer 40K he's so genuinely happy about it that it's like I could listen to this guy go on for hours about 40K because his excitement brings excitement into me. You know, like when you have somebody who's really enthusiastic about something and they start explaining and it kind of gets you hyped up for it as well, and that's kind of him.
Right.
He's a great actor, but he also seems like just a really great person. So that's why I like Henry Cavill so much, and that's why
I needed more projects with him. I realized, like as he said that, I realized I have seen so little of his filmography.
I know, Joey, I know your feelings on the Man of Steel, but I think he is arguably the best Superman. I mean,
that is a hot take.
They come far and few, so it's not a hot take.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't
Batman.
think there's any bad Superman actors, but I think for there's something about him, the way he plays this almost like this alien who's more human than anyone else. The way he plays it is just phenomenal.
I think him as Superman is not bad. Like his acting, I think is good.
Yeah, and that's what
I
I'm
think
saying.
his Superman is bad. Like I don't like how his Superman is.
I think that's a fair
that
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I think his acting. See, I actually like this iteration of the Superman. Growing up a DC fan, it's always the same old Superman. So seeing this new,
Right.
and which don't get me wrong, like that same Superman is the most iconic iteration of Superman. But seeing this new take of Superman is
Which I think
it's
David
refreshing.
Crossett will be able to differ himself from when his Superman. He's going to be the iconic role, but he's going to make himself different than Christopher Reeves. I still feel.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, at number 3 for me is an actor that I feel like everybody knows, but very few actually know his name, Walton Goggins. Everything that I see him in, I love him in everything. I mean, he always shows up kind of like the most nuanced, small roles in the films. Like, he's an Ant-Man and the Wasp. I believe he's like some sort of arms dealer. I just remember seeing him and doing that, that Leo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
He himself, just like I mentioned earlier with Timothy Olyphant, is in Justified. He's phenomenal in that. I've heard good things about him in Fallout. He plays Cecil in Invincible, which is amazing. And probably my favorite role, Mr. Stone in Community.
He is a great cameo in Community.
Yeah. And how he goes from like this serious lawyer, questioning the group and giving them their bequeathments, only to then cut to the end of the episode where they're at a bar and he's like this super fun guy, that they can't even stand because he's kind of annoying. But only Walton Goggins would be able to have a performance like that. So, number 2 for me is J.K. Simmons, actually.
Good pick.
Truth is, as I was making this list, I just had happened to look over to my bookshelf, in which I have a whole row of movies, and I saw Whiplash, and I went, I love J.K. Simmons. Because not a few movies away from Whiplash is the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy, which he's J. Jonah Jameson, and he's phenomenal. He's Omni-Man in Invincible. So he's proven himself to be a great voice actor and a great actor. I mean, I don't know how you can dislike the guy. He's just a phenomenal actor. And this
He's
is
not one of those guys that's just in everything.
He is in
and
everything.
You don't realize it.
He is in a lot.
Yeah. But my number 1 is Brad Pitt. I think we all kind of talked about this, and immediately as soon as Joey said, I think we want to do our top 5 favorite actors, Brad Pitt was the first person that popped in my head, because I'm going to quote the great Bowling for Soup right now. I want to be Brad Pitt. The guy's in everything. The guy's hilarious in his comedic roles. He's phenomenal in his serious roles. I mean, just what more can you ask of an actor with his range?
Yeah.
I wanted to put Leo on my list, and I think that Leo DiCaprio is one of the greatest actors ever. He's just not. I don't know. He's just not my favorite. I think he's an amazing actor. It's just something about him though that's like, I mean,
I would agree with that statement. He's an amazing actor, but just I don't know why he's just not really like a favorite of mine.
So,
exactly.
According to a quick Google search I just did, Brad Pitt has been nominated for 6 total Oscars, but he's only won 2 for both leading and supporting actor. And,
What was the leading for?
I don't know. I'm just saying in total he was nominated
Okay.
for 6, but he's only won 2 of them. One of them was for his role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Phenomenal.
No,
I think that was supporting.
Yeah.
I can't
Starring?
say he
Like
definitely deserves more than 2.
I agree.
Surprised he didn't win any. I don't know if he won any for Inglourious Bastards. I would have thought he would have won for that. If he was
I
considered
think
the
his
lead.
lead was maybe for 7. That was where he got
I
his
don't
lead.
know
in.
if he's the lead in that movie. I thought Morgan Freeman was the lead.
Yeah, that's true.
He was nominated for Moneyball, so the fact he didn't win that is crazy.
Yeah, he was really good in Moneyball.
He was nominated for Benjamin Button, but he didn't win that. He was nominated for The Big Short. I can't find what his other win was, but nevertheless, he deserves more than 2.
Agreed.
I don't. Oh, I see Best Actor. No, nominee for Moneyball. It was no. I'm not seeing. The only 2 that I see that he won was Best Supporting Actor and Best Picture. It was for 12 Years a Slave.
That's right, because he is a producer.
Oh.
He got nominated for Best Picture for The Big
produces
Short.
a lot of random movies.
Then he got
You'll see
nominated again in
You'll see him
2012.
randomly on movies as of late that he'll help produce, and they're
Yeah,
always
he'll just
super
be
good.
there.
So he only has 1 acting Oscar, which is ridiculous.
That's crazy, and it's not even a lead. It's just a supporting.
No, he's the supporting actor. Leo's
Yeah.
the lead in that movie.
I think he should get lead for Moneyball, probably Inglourious Bastards. He should get a support. He should have got a supporting for 7.
Yeah.
That's just
At
me.
least all those. Those are just the ones off the top of my head.
Yeah, those are the ones off the top of your head. So kind of moving from the actors over to actresses. This list was kind of hard for me to make, and then I was like, oh, but I like that movie a little bit more because of that actress.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put my honorable mention, and this is mainly because I'm sticking to movies, not as much TV, and I feel like if she had some more meaningful movie roles, that she would definitely go up there. Is Jennifer Aniston. Her as Rachel in Friends, she's probably my 2 character. My number 1 is of course Joey Tribbiani, but she's probably my 3. Chandler Bing's probably 2, but it shows a lot because she did so well over a course of 9 seasons, and she is good in random different movies, and she's probably the best actor to come out of the Friends series, in my opinion. So I just put her in the honorable mention category just because I don't think, with movies-wise, I don't think she would be in my top 5 if we're just strict movie. But I wanted to mention her in that case.
You know what's funny was when I was making this list, for some reason I didn't even think of Jennifer Aniston. I spent so long trying to think of I just spent so long trying to think of actresses, and none of them came to mind other than essentially the 5 that I have.
Yeah.
So
Jennifer Aniston.
For some reason I couldn't think of it. I was looking at my bookshelf, looking at movies, and I still couldn't figure it out.
Yeah,
I looked it
took
up.
me a while to make this one. I think a big thing that the audience needs to understand is we are all guys.
Yeah.
And usually, when a woman is a lead in a movie, it's either a romance movie or it's just not a guy movie.
That's a good point.
So, it's a little hard sometimes to find a lot
Movies
of
that we enjoy.
with lead
Yeah.
actresses that we would have watched.
Exactly. So, my number 5 is Zendaya. Not only did she go from Disney Channel being in a lot of different stuff that I watched growing up, but now she's kind of transitioned into the movie roles, in which one of my favorite movies from this past year, I know you 2 don't like it, I don't know if both of you saw it, is Challengers.
Oh my god.
I love that movie. I think she was great. I think she should win Best Actress in this upcoming Oscars for that role.
Okay. I have a long list of movies that I've watched. I have to go back to that list because I can't think of a lot of lead actress nominations that would come out for this year. So that's not necessarily a hot take.
I mean,
but I did not care for the movie. She was good in it. I thought the acting was good.
I definitely think she'll get a nomination. I think the
like,
hot take is that she'll win.
See, but I don't know what movies came out this year with lead actresses off the top of my head. I'm struggling to think of a lot, so
Right.
I don't think that's a very hot take for her to win.
I mean,
I don't like the movie. I thought all the actors were good, and I've learned that I don't like, however you say his name, Luca Guadagnino. I don't like his movies. I've just learned. So it's mostly his fault.
Going back to the actress, so she's actually in my honorable mentions, but Jodie Comer, her role in Bike Riders.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't.
we talked about that a few times.
You know, I think. I mean, I'm not sure because most of the movie followed her, so I'm assuming that she's the lead actress.
Yeah, she would.
I think
she would get it.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think that she is probably the most
in that whole movie.
Well, yeah, I think she's the most deserving. I would say of the lead actress Oscar nominee. If she gets it, that is, and I think that she definitely should.
Movies. I assume Wicked is going to get a lead actress. Other actresses: Lily Rose Depp, Nosferatu, Florence Pugh, We Live in Time, Anya Taylor-Joy, Furiosa. But other than that, there's not a lot of lead women movies that I'm looking at. Maybe I'm blanking on her name. Twisters, Daisy Edgar-Jones.
I don't think she'll get it for that. No,
I don't think she'll win, but I'm just talking about possible nominations.
I don't think she'll get nominated for that.
I don't know.
At least
I think those first 5 I named are going to be, or those first 4 plus Zendaya are going to be the top 5. Nominated.
I would think so. My number 4 is one of the more popular movies from, I think it was 2 years ago. Won very big at the Oscars, and this is where she won her first Oscar, is Michelle Yeoh. She has been in the upward trend a lot recently. She's been in a lot of fun stuff. She's been in one of my favorite movies, which we'll get into later because it is in my top 10. So Michelle Yeoh, I think she's going to get a lot more roles in the coming years, and she's just going to be in a lot more stuff that I'm going to start to like. So Michelle Yeoh is my number 4. My number 3, Mikey, I know you're going to like this, Natalie Portman at number 3.
I'm a big fan of Natalie Portman. The first one.
Natalie Portman has some great stuff. Black Swan is what comes to mind.
Yeah.
Also being Padme in Star Wars, and then having a lot of different roles throughout a lot of different franchises and a lot of her own movies. So Natalie Portman is at my number 3. At my number 2.
But I talked to Mikey, like I haven't seen Black Swan, haven't seen Leon the Professional, haven't seen V for Vendetta. So there's a lot of serious things outside of Star Wars and Marvel that I have not seen
with her in it.
Yeah. As far as Natalie Portman goes, I would say that Evie from V for Vendetta is probably my favorite role that she's had. I mean, I
just really like Black Swan with her. I think that's kind of like a cheesy pick. Like that's like everyone kind of picks that, but that's just me. My number 2 is Anne Hathaway. You go Princess Diaries, Interstellar, a lot of different Batman. Like she's in a lot of stuff, and you wouldn't actually think that she'd be in so many of the different things that she's in, and then you're like, that kind of makes sense. I like that. Why is that so good? And so I just think that she's continued to go above and beyond in all the movies that she's. You could definitely see that she started at one point and she's continued to get better going on. And my number 1, one that I was told today when I was making this list here at school that is a hot take, which I don't think so, is number 1 Emma Stone. She has 2 Oscars for a reason.
Well,
I mean, wow,
that's a hot take. Okay, that is the hottest take I've heard. In fact, I will go into how angry I am about what you said about that later when I get into my top 5.
Yeah, when I'm in my top 5, just know that I'm disgusted by your number 1 pick.
So Emma Stone is my number 1. She has 2 Oscar wins for a reason. La La Land is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I had to put her somewhere. And immediately, as soon as I started this list, I go, number 1, Emma Stone, wrote it down, had no questions.
Yeah.
I will watch anything that she's in. I think she's great. And it kind of all started from the TASM movies. So, yeah, that's my top 5.
All right, so for my top 5, this one, again, a little hard to make. I got my 1 and 2 down pretty quickly, and then it was more of just trying to remember people's names for the most part. But trying to fill up the list wasn't too hard. Number 5, Anya Taylor-Joy. She's got an interesting range between her.
She does.
Furiosa, which I saw with Mikey in theaters, very enjoyable movie. She was good in that. She's in Split when she's very young.
Yeah.
In that.
She's in Glass too.
I think my favorite role of hers is Last Night in Soho, which is like a psychedelic thriller-ish movie. She's very good in that, very creepy. She's just going to keep getting roles, and
Yeah.
she's just going to keep nailing them for what it seems like. She's got a great track record. Number 4, Charlize Theron. Also played Furiosa in Mad Max Fury Road. She's very good in that. I love her in The Italian Job, the remake with Mark Wahlberg and Jason Statham and Edward Norton. It's not the best movie, but she's great in that. And she's got a couple other things, like The Old Guard she was pretty good in. She's in the newer Fast and Furious movies, which themselves are not anything to talk about, but she's good in them. She's just one of those people that just kind of exists, but you always watch it, and it's like,
yeah, you seem to find her in some random projects.
Right. Number 3, Emily Blunt, who doesn't get talked about a lot, but even when she's a lead or the side lead, she's very good. The Quiet Place movies, she's great in. Edge of Tomorrow, very good. The Fall Guy, hilarious.
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins, she again, it's one of those movies where like the actor or actress was not the problem with that movie. She did very good, I thought.
She did very good for what she was given.
Right.
Yep.
Because it's very hard to be on a screen with Lin-Manuel Miranda and not think the movie is about him. But I thought she did very good. Number 2, which I have not seen all of her filmography for the same reason I mentioned earlier. Some of these are not movies that a guy wants to watch. Margot Robbie. Babylon is really the one that I went with. I think I'm the only one here who's seen it.
I've heard good things.
Yeah.
So it's one of those very polarizing movies. It was the Megalopolis before Megalopolis. It was you either loved it and thought it was like I thought it was like a 9 out of 10, or you just absolutely hated it because you're not one of the people that wants to watch the homage to filmmaking movies. She's fantastic in it, and I'm a little surprised she didn't win. But then I went back and looked at the Oscars, and it was the Everything Everywhere takeover year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I have my problems with that Oscar year as it is, but I do think Michelle Yeoh should have gotten it over her for that specific movie. But she's great, and she's very funny for her little cameo where she just shows up in The Big Short and just like explains how mortgages and the economy works to everybody.
Right.
Leaves, and you pretend like she was never there.
Oh yeah.
And then for my number 1, how dare you, Joey, is Emma Stone.
What is wrong with you guys? Why do you guys like Emma Stone so much?
I'm going to use the same way I described Brad Pitt. Probably the most consistent actress in Hollywood right now. She's funny. She does La La Land fantastically, which I love. The Tazza movies are a great launching point to want to like follow her career, even though she did stuff before that.
Yeah.
And yeah, she has Oscars for a reason. Even though I haven't watched those 2 movies because I'm not a fan of the director, I assume she deserves them.
Right. Alrighty. I like that.
I already said Jodie Comer is my honorable mention. I also had Ana de Armas. I really like her, but I just haven't seen her in enough stuff yet. You know, so as Brayden and I were discussing not too long ago, we're really, really waiting for Ballerina to come out. But kicking off my list at number 5 is Jamie Lee Curtis. Probably the biggest reason is because of the 2003 masterpiece Freaky Friday, starring her and Lindsay Lohan. Phenomenal film. I love it so much. At number 4 for me was Jennifer Coolidge. She's one of those actresses that...
Really?
Okay, dude, I looked over and saw Legally Blonde, and I went, I haven't seen enough stuff with Reese Witherspoon, and then I thought Jennifer Coolidge, and I went, every single time I see her in a movie, I know she's going to have a funny, memorable role.
True.
And that's why I was like, Jennifer Coolidge, she's phenomenal.
Reese Witherspoon was one that I wanted to put in my honorable mentions for stuff like Legally Blonde, and then she's totally Oscar deserving of the award she got for Walk the Line as a June Carter Cash. But again, not a lot of movies that I feel like watching that she's in.
Yeah.
She is very funny in Friends, though, as Rachel's sister.
Agreed.
So, as Brayden mentioned earlier with his, my number 3 is Margot Robbie, because she gives a phenomenal performance, mainly in The Wolf of Wall Street with Leo DiCaprio. That movie is just full of phenomenal performances. Not to mention, as he said, as Brayden said earlier, with Big Short, her kind of like random appearance
Right.
is memorable and funny. It's kind of funny how she just kind of randomly appears to explain. I forgot exactly what she's explaining, but it has to do with something like finances, and she's doing it in like a bathtub, and it's like watching that, it's just like, who thought of this? But then you realize, and it's like, for some reason, after that movie, it's like Margot Robbie is one of the main things I remember about that film because she randomly shows up in a bathtub. It's just so random that it's funny.
It's memorable.
Not to mention, she plays Harley Quinn phenomenally, even though most of those movies are not good.
Yeah, we won't. Probably not.
Joey, I'm kind of going on the same track with you for my number 2 being Natalie Portman. As I said,
Yeah.
I absolutely love V for Vendetta. Love her as Evie. And for my number 1 is Emma Stone.
I love that we have Emma Stone across the board.
That's
awesome.
She's.
But I do think that speaks volumes about something.
Yeah, that definitely says something.
I mean, as we said, same thing with when we said, hey, Brad Pitt was the first person that popped in my mind when we said best actors. Emma Stone was the first person that popped in my mind when we said best actresses.
Right.
She has a phenomenal performance in movies like Easy A and Superbad. And then even though I absolutely hate La La Land, she gives a pretty great performance in that movie as well.
You love it, don't
You
lie.
love it more than any of us.
I
No,
hate it.
hot take, not more than
I
me.
hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And now, so let's move on to our directors.
So with the directors, I kind of had a hard time making my directors because there's like 4 that everyone knows and everyone loves because they make consistently good movies, and then there's people that like make movies that some are good and some are bad, and some are really good and some are really bad. So at my number 5, I kind of went towards the animated route. Also more because of like, all right, where am I getting all these animated movies that I grew up with that I still continue to love? Who made those? And the number 1 that was consistent across the board was mainly for Pixar with John Lasseter. He had a lot of cool stuff, whether he was directing the movie or he was executive producing the movie. He was in a lot of stuff. He's basically been with Pixar since the beginning. He directed Toy Story. He directed the rest of the Toy Stories up until Toy Story 4. He didn't do that one. He was executive produced that one. But then all the Cars, all that kind of stuff. So definitely had to put John Lasseter on there. Maybe one that not a lot of people are going to think of, but that was kind of where my mind went to. Number 4, this is definitely a personal pick, and this is why it's our favorites, is George Lucas. He created the amazing franchise, and that I think a lot of people could argue is maybe the biggest franchise ever created from one man and one man only. And so him not only having Star Wars, but then also having THX 1138, which is an underrated movie and that a lot more people should give attention to, and then American Graffiti, and then you have all of his Star Wars films. You can't ignore that he is the creator, and then he also was there to help with producing Jurassic Park, Jaws, Indiana Jones, which leads me to my number 3, which is not Spielberg, it is Tarantino. Tarantino has a lot of good stuff. Me personally, I've had a few of his films that I just didn't really click with, as some other people might in this chat here. But then my number 2 is Spielberg. He's created just continuous amazing movies. E.T., Jurassic Park, Jaws, Indiana Jones. He continues to go on. Now, a lot of his stuff that has been more recent kind of hasn't been a big hit. You have BFG, that he was like, I don't know if he directed, but he was like involved with it somehow, and it just...
He, in a Brad Pitt way, like we talked about, he attaches himself to a lot of random things.
Yeah, and it's really random, so like BFG definitely knocks him down, but then like Ready Player One, some people love it, some people hate it. I'm more on the love it side of it. I'm a big pop culture guy, so that's why we have this podcast. So Ready Player One was for me, and I really did enjoy it. And then he has The Fabelmans, which technically he didn't direct, but it's about him, so he basically directed it. So that's where Spielberg sits on mine. And then at number 1, I think is going to be a lot of number 1s throughout the world. Maybe not here, but Christopher Nolan. He's created such good movies, and when you learn more and more about what he does, it has become and how he makes these movies, it's definitely one that you need to turn an eye to. So you have Oppenheimer, you have a lot of different stuff that he's had in the past that you just can't ignore. You have The Dark Knight, like, you just can't ignore that kind of stuff. So, yeah, Christopher Nolan at my number one. Those are my directors.
Yeah, for my top five, I mean, in my honorable mentions, I have Christopher Nolan. Very few of his movies have been short of anything but fantastic. But he's not, aside from like the Batmans, in my eyes, the most rewatchable, because they're either long, Interstellar, Oppenheimer, or it's stuff like Memento, where it like breaks your mind, and then you can't really watch it continuously.
Right.
And then I also have James Mangold in my honorable mentions. He's made 2 of my top 10 movies that I'm going to talk about, but he's got a couple good but not great and just like solid to meh things that he's put out. But he has made some fantastic films, so I thought I had to shout him out. Number 5, I have Damien Chazelle. I think he's one of the most creative directors out there right now. I've yet to see First Man, which I'm really interested to see because it's completely different than Whiplash, La La Land, Babylon, which are these musical journeys in their own way that you get taken on. And that's a more serious, real-life-based movie. But I've loved everything that I've seen from him, and I love his personal flair that he likes to inflict. Number 4, I have Edgar Wright. Another guy whose personal style is fantastic. He knows how to make some like good action, and he also knows how to direct comedy in his own personal way. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is arguably the best edited movie I've ever seen in my life, and the editing elevates the movie, because if you put a lot of guys like a Christopher Nolan, or you put a Scorsese behind the camera and he tells the production crew how to edit that movie, it's not going to be good. It just will not be the same movie, just because of the source material that he wanted to copy and whatnot. At number 3, I don't know if this is going to be a hot take, I have Clint Eastwood. Doesn't get enough respect for his directing skills.
I didn't think of that. That's a good pick. I'd probably put him in my honorable mention.
He's American Sniper, Gran Torino, The Mule, $1 Million Baby, which is a fantastic movie that he also acts in, and so he usually gets overlooked as a director. And he's made a lot of movies that we have all seen and liked, whether we know he made it or not.
Right.
At number 2, I have Quentin Tarantino. There's only one of his movies that I didn't think was on the level of great to amazing, which I do need to go back and rewatch. It's Jackie Brown, because I didn't feel like I loved it the first time. But if I feel like I go back, I'll appreciate it a little bit more, because it is a little bit weirder, the story, and he is not the original scriptwriter of it, so it feels very un-Tarantino as you watch it, especially if you just come off of a high from like anything from Reservoir Dogs to Inglourious Basterds. But he is one of the best in the business, and it's very sad that we may never get another project from him again.
Well,
I think it's one final one.
He says he's giving us his 10th film, which was supposed to be The Film Critic, but he didn't like it enough.
The rights to that, and
yeah,
so he made it retire.
No, I'm sure he'll give us his 10th, because
I think he'll give us a 10th.
He's always said that he was going to give us 10 films,
because the world needs one more.
You know,
yeah, we need one more.
I think he's just waiting for the perfect.
Well, I think it's going to be. I think it's
people that he's made movies with to bring back together and make like the most epic Tarantino movie ever. Because the other thing is, all of his movies replicate other genres, old genres, whether it's old westerns, whether it's film noir, and I think he's trying to figure out which one he really wants to replicate to build off of, and I think that's the hardest part.
I think he realized it's gonna be hard for him to top Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as a final movie, because it's quite literally a love letter to film as a whole. So as a final movie,
he has
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood would be great, but
in my opinion, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood isn't even his top 3. But I do think, like, if he makes anything short of that movie, he's going to be very disappointed in himself.
Yeah.
And as my number 1 director, I have Denis Villeneuve. He's just one of the guys that a lot of people don't know by name, but if you mention the Dune movies, Blade Runner 2049, they're all beautifully shot. And usually when you see directors want to make a movie that looks pretty or looks appealing on the screen, they sacrifice good acting or whatever for budget, maybe a good script. But he always seems to convince the studio to give him everything he needs, because all of his movies are fantastically shot, and yet he always manages to get a great ensemble of actors and the script and make some of the best movies out there. Incendies is one of the few movies that I give a perfect rating, and it's one of the first movies that he ever made, and I can't recommend it enough to people, but he just doesn't always get the credit he's due.
Yeah. So I would like to preface my list by saying that I was unaware that we were doing top 5 directors until maybe
2
about
minutes
an hour
before
ago.
recording.
Yeah. So my picks are a little basic because at number 5 I have Nolan. I think Christopher Nolan is a phenomenal director. I think he's one of the greatest directors. It's just for some reason I've never really loved any of his films outside of the Dark Knight trilogy and Oppenheimer. They're just they look amazing. They're directed great, but for some reason they just don't appeal to me.
It is almost a Tarantino thing.
Exactly.
I was gonna say that with Joey, Tarantino does not appeal to everybody, and that's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah.
But then you have things like *Inglourious Basterds*, where it's a war movie and it's a little more basic audience. Same thing with *Interstellar* or the Batman movies that Nolan made, because then things like *Tenet* do not appeal to all sci-fi fans, and that's
No.
totally okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, number 4 is the Russo brothers. Not even because of their roles in Marvel, but mostly because of Community. As you all will find out over the next few weeks, I am a huge fan of Community. I would say that it is probably the greatest sitcom ever made. I just love it. I love everything.
I need
about
to
it.
get on it.
You really do. You really do. And Brayden, you need to get on How I Met Your Mother. But that's a discussion for another time. But Russo brothers were huge on that. Especially Modern Warfare. I think they did actually all the paintball episodes, which I might be wrong about. But I can tell you for sure the first paintball episode they were directors for. Not to mention they did a few things for Arrested Development, as we were talking about before the show, which is another show that I love. So Russo brothers, not because of Marvel, but because of their TV stuff. Number 3 for me is a hot take, for you two especially, but Zack Snyder. Number 3 is
Yeah,
Zack
that's a
Snyder
hot
for me.
take for me.
And it's because of, as we were going on, as Brayden was going on about Villeneuve, Snyder's films always look, for the most part, we're going to leave out Army of the Dead, I believe is what that movie is called, the Netflix one. For the most part, his movies always look amazing. They look great. You watch 300 and Watchmen and any of his DC movies, they look like you can take a still from that movie and it looks like it was ripped out from a comic book itself. His movies,
I can agree with that.
His movies,
They look good. His writing, I don't agree with.
And that's what I'm
Let the
saying.
record state, I think I'm the only one
Right.
in this hall to have seen the Rebel Moon movie,
Okay, hold up.
which are some of the worst
And
movies I
this
have
is
ever seen in the past decade.
This is what I want to this is what I want to kind of say though. We're judging Snyder off of people like Tarantino and Nolan who write the films that they direct. Sometimes you just have a great director that if you give him the right writer, if you give him the right producer, and you just let him do what he needs to do for the movie in itself, he will deliver on a great movie every time, and that's what I think Snyder is. I think if you give him the right, if he can come up with a good kind of direction for the film of where his mind is. I think if you give him the right writer and the right producers, then he is phenomenal. Right? I know Watchmen is a very divisive film. I personally think it's really good. I see where a lot of people's gripes about the movie is, especially with the ending. But I think that it looks phenomenal, and I think that it does a pretty good job adapting the source material in most aspects.
I do think he needs to get another shot
So.
directing for some movie that's already been written, already got a producer attached to it
Yeah.
from a studio like
Right.
Universal or Warner Brothers. He needs another shot,
Yeah.
but needs to stop getting opportunities for projects he has written because the Rebel Moon movies were atrocious.
But, I know I absolutely love...
But they looked great.
they look great. They look great. And as a
True
director,
that.
that's really what you need. But I would, I know, again, going back to the hot take, I absolutely love the Snyderverse, right? Because, again, as I stated, I grew up watching the DC animated stuff. I grew up watching DC stuff. I grew up reading DC comics. The Snyderverse is a great, fresh, and new iteration of these characters that feels like, just when you watch it, it just feels great to watch. And I think that if we would have gone with his vision initially, it would have been great. I feel like I get it. It's something that, not a lot of people like, but again, this is why it's our favorite.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Zack Snyder is my third. Coming number 2 is Denis Villeneuve. I mean, I don't really need to say much. Brayden pretty much already summed it up. As he said, his movies look phenomenal too. He does a little bit better than Snyder when it comes to his movies like the Dune movies, Sicario, which is one of my personal favorites. And of course, coming in at number 1 for me is Quentin Tarantino. As stated with Villeneuve, I don't need to say much about him, other than the fact that he's a phenomenal director. I mean, you guys pretty much already summed it up with your 2 takes on him.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
And we say this all the time, you and I do, nobody writes dialogue better than Quentin Tarantino in the history
Yeah.
of film.
No, I mean...
He is the only person who comes close is Guy Ritchie, in our opinion, but he is still leagues behind Tarantino's level.
So the thing with Tarantino with his dialogue is that you could make a whole movie, like a bottle episode in TV shows. For those who don't know, it's essentially you put everyone in one confined space for the entire episode, and a lot of times sitcoms will use it as a way to save budget. You can make essentially one long bottle episode, a 3-hour-long film, Tarantino with Tarantino of just his writing, and it be just as captivating as any large, bombastic action film.
I mean, Reservoir Dogs is essentially a bottle episode.
Well, yeah, but
it's
but like, the first time I watched Reservoir Dogs, the first line of that film just kind of it interests you, it intrigues you.
Comes out at you.
It does, and then halfway through watching that opening a diner scene, you're hooked. Right? I was hooked. I absolutely loved it.
Because none of it feels like filler. That's the thing.
It doesn't.
Anything
It doesn't.
they say is important, even though
It
basically, aside from just kind of introducing you to the characters, the introduction scene does not entirely play a huge role into the movie.
No.
But it makes you feel like it's supposed to.
I mean, it does. It does kind of like. I mean, I'm
it
not sure.
introduces personalities.
It
Doesn't literally play into the movie, but it feels like it does.
I'm not going to spoil the film because I think that it's a must-watch for anyone. But it does, to a degree. Once you watch the film, you'll realize it. It does foreshadow the movie. But it's just. I loved it so much that I watched it twice in one day. I'm going to put it that way. That's how much I love Reservoir Dogs.
Well, look at you.
So, I mean, Tarantino obviously is one of my favorite directors. Tarantino is my favorite director. When I think of movie directors, Tarantino is the first one that I think of for a reason. So, and
All right.
I'm sure you'll see maybe one of his films on my list.
Who knows? Hopefully we'll see that. So going into our top 10 movies, if you didn't see, there were a few times that I went to go write on my notepad, and I got a little carried away with my honorable mentions. I have 6 honorable mentions. It's basically just like a top 16. A lot of this, the way that I kind of made it was I picked a movie from a genre that I want this movie to kind of represent in here, represent the genre in here. So that's kind of how I went with it. So there are movies that I probably would put over maybe my number 10 that are all time. Honestly, probably some of these honorable mentions I would put over my number 10. But number 10 means a lot to me for a certain reason, which we'll get into. So that's kind of where I went with my top 10 list. For my honorable mentions, I have Bohemian Rhapsody. I just think Raimi was so good in that movie, and I think that really did set a bar for biopic movies, not only for a specific person, but also how they were able to do the entirety of the band. They focused on Mercury, but they did do very well in telling the entire band's story. Then you have No Way Home, I think is a top 5 Marvel project that they have ever made. A lot of people might say that is nostalgia bait, but I take away the nostalgia. I still think it is a good movie. So that's where I kind of stand on that one. We probably will have more discussion later in later episodes, more on that movie. I have Top Gun Maverick in here, one of the greater sequels of all time. A lot of people do say that Top Gun is better. I think that Top Gun is better, but Top Gun Maverick is so good that you just have to mention it. So I think that is why I have that here in my honorable mentions. 2 animated movies that didn't make my list, but I did want to mention, is Ratatouille. It's a great story. It's such a feel-good story that you have with it, and it definitely does tell you that you can do anything. Anyone can cook. You can do anything you put your mind to. Then I have Sing. I don't know why I really like Sing. Maybe it's because it's like I like music and I like I don't know why. I just really like it. So it's in my honorable mentions. And then Infinity War. I just had a great theater experience overall with Infinity War that I had to definitely mention it. So going off with my top 10, finally getting there. At my number 10 spot is The Martian. It is the reason why I do love Matt Damon as much as I do. I think it tells a great realistic story because basically everything that happens in there could be realistic on Mars. And it's just such a good, he could just stop. He could just die. But instead, he has that drive. He continues to go. He continues to push himself to find a way to live so that way he can get back to where he wanted. And it's just a full circle kind of thing. I really love that movie. Number 9...
of the indomitable human spirit that's not just like a guy adrenaline rushed or something. And then
exactly.
The realism part, it does make you feel like you could go grow potatoes on Mars. It doesn't feel like it's that illogical where it's like a interstellar storyline.
Yeah, it made everything make sense. You didn't sit there and go, I don't know about that. I'm not a scientist, but that doesn't make sense. Everything did make sense, which I thought was very good. Plus, just the stuff they have back on Earth with Donald Glover and stuff, it's really good. My number 9 is my comedy movie that I have in here, and it's more of a personal one as well because it's my major, is Anchorman. Such a quotable movie. I mean, wow. Just every single one of those actors is amazing in that movie. Such a quotable movie. I think it's Will Ferrell's best movie.
Yeah.
And it's timeless. You will never be able to replace Anchorman. So Anchorman's at my 9.
I believe it was the second one, but they dropped the most badass line ever dropped in film with Vince Vaughn. Where he reveals to the people that he was emptying gas tanks by them, and he's like, I'm going to drop this cigarette, and the one guy's like, well, that'll kill you too, and he's like, with the things I've done here on Earth, I sure as shit know I'm going to burn in hell. So I'm not afraid of burning here on Earth, too. And it's like, wow. The most badass line in all of film was dropped in Anchorman 2.
In Anchorman, yeah.
I believe it was the second one, but it might be the first one. But
I think it is the second one.
Yeah.
I think you're right. My number 8 is kind of representing the musical area of things, but also representing my number 1 actress with La La Land. I mean, I did not think that I would cry at this movie, but I did. And it's one of those ones that you're like, I didn't think that was going to happen. And so for that, it's going up there. It's going in that top 10 position. So at my number 8 is La La Land.
Get that out of here.
At my number 7 spot is kind of representing the sports genre. There are a lot of different movies that you could say for this. Remember the Titans.
Like Mike.
You could say The Sandlot. He said Blindside.
Like Mike is a fantastic film, okay? I will die on that hill.
At my number 7, representing sports, is Moneyball. I mean, find a way to me, I already love baseball, but then you up it a notch by telling me everything else behind actual baseball, while also showing me baseball and giving me drama with it, and like making me be invested with these characters. Like, it's an awesome watch. It's definitely one that I can turn on in the background and be able to watch it, but then also I can turn it on and actually watch it over and over again. Love Moneyball. At my number 6, I couldn't decide which one I wanted to put on this list because I love both of them so much. They're both 5 stars in my opinion, and depending on how the third one comes out, could be, in my opinion, the best trilogy ever made, is Into or Across the Spider-Verse. Both movies are just spectacularly animated. Voice acting is amazing. Storylines are awesome. It's everything about Spider-Man and more. And then also gives us Miles Morales, one Spider-Man character that hadn't been explained enough. And we got these movies, and now you could argue are the best animated movies of all time, and are the best Marvel and superhero movies of all time. So the fact that they are just that good puts them at my 6. So that's where they go for me. At my number 5, more of a family movie for me. It's not a family movie, but it's my personal family movie, is The Godfather. I love it.
It insists upon itself.
It insists upon itself. I remember when I was younger, I wanted to watch it, and my dad was like, we'll watch it later. A year later. My dad said, we have to watch it together, and you're not allowed to ask any questions until the end. And I said, okay. And we watch it, and I love it. Especially number 2. I love number 2 more. I think number 2 is better than 1. However, number 1 just holds a more special place because it is a family memory that I hold. So that is at my number 5. And now, these
Probably
4...
take that DVD case of all 3 of those movies off my shelf and put them in the Blu-ray player at some point.
You probably should. And the fact that we still are at this point where we haven't is crazy to me.
Well, I'm in school now. I can't watch it.
Well, that sounds like an excuse to me. You can have them mailed. At my number 4, kind of represents the rom-com romance eras. I don't know why I love it so much, but I just love this movie. It's like a feel-good movie for me for some reason. It's Crazy Rich Asians. I mean, I just love this movie. That's why Michelle Yeoh is in my 4. I love her role as the mom that's being defensive. She plays a great mother-in-law where you would like the stereotypical mother-in-law where you're always butting heads with it. Like, I don't know why I love it. I just do. I forever will.
You know, my sisters and I quote that movie a lot. It's
I'm
very funny.
I'm constantly butting heads with my mother-in-law, so I'm quite familiar with Michelle Yeoh.
You have a mother-in-law.
I exact opposite of you. I know you love Crazy Rich Asians. I hate it. I legitimately hate it, and it's all because when it first came out in theaters, I was tricked into seeing it in theaters. It did not look appealing to me, and my sisters went, "You should watch it. It's a comedy movie." And I watched it, and I'm like, I was scammed. I do not, and since then it's just kind of, it's the same thing with like Harry Potter. I hate the Harry Potter films for the same reason. I was forced to watch these Harry Potter films when I was younger, before I could fully, truly understand them, and it just has a bad memory.
I think you need
I understand.
to
This
your own free will.
Nope. I refuse. At this point, it has gone too deep. I hate them. I've already committed to that. And, I don't change my...
We know you don't change your mind often.
I know.
With Crazy Rich Asians, that is one that I wish would get a sequel sometime soon. It was scheduled to get one before COVID, and then when COVID came, it kind of struck it down. There are a lot of people saying that it's going to come, but we haven't seen a lot recently. My number 3 is Ocean's 11. Love that movie. It is another one where you have to sit, you have to watch the entire thing, and then you can ask questions. Don't ask questions in the middle. Don't ask questions towards the end. Just watch the whole thing, and then you can ask questions. But it is one of my favorite movies of all time. I go back to it at least 2 times a year. I know I watched it twice last year. I'll probably watch it again this week because every time I bring it up, I just love it. Ocean's 12 is really good. Ocean's 13 is good. Ocean's 8 is its own thing. And then we're getting another Ocean's 14 in the coming years. It was announced sometime last year, and that Brad Pitt and George Clooney were coming back for it, and so we got Wolves, which is you missed that, really?
How did I miss that announcement?
I don't know how you missed it. I'll have to show you, but we got Wolves, which was kind of something that's like kind of teasing it a little bit. They acted very similar as they would in Ocean's 11, so I'm very excited to get Ocean's 14 and then also continue to watch Ocean's 11. At my number 2.
So the chemistry between that cast is genuinely insane. The movie is incredibly rewatchable. We both agree that it is a perfect movie, which I think is a bit of a hot take, but I'm glad we agree on it.
I think a lot of people would say it either is a perfect movie or it's near a perfect movie.
The big thing about it is a lot of people, they don't like it because they think it's just a heist movie, Michael. But once you really start getting into it and the more you rewatch it, it's almost a romance movie at its core.
Yeah, exactly. At my number 2 is Cars. To kind of start off as my reason why, when I was younger, I had a disc of it, and then it turned from not just one disc, but 3, because I burned through watching them because they stayed in the DVD player, and I consistently watched them. So my mom had to buy multiple of them because I watched it so much. I really do love the movie. I couldn't tell you why. Apparently, when I was a kid, I just really liked it, and I still do. So that's why it's at my number 2. Don't really have any other reason from that. And then my number 1, the reason I love movies so much, the reason I love pop culture so much, started at age 8 with Return of the Jedi, is Star Wars. Just in total. I can't pick a certain movie. My number 1 is probably A New Hope, just because of what it stands for and the idea of creating that. George Lucas being this guy that is a nobody and then just creates this out of his mind, it blows my mind. Now, there's a lot of different things that you can get into it. There's a lot of different things that I have found from reading books. I wish I could show you my bookshelf that I have on my desk here. It's all Star Wars movies and 2 announcer books. So it just shows that Star Wars has impacted me so much to this day. And I forever love it. So that is why Star Wars is at my number 1. So those are my top 10 with honorable mentions of movies. We'll definitely get into more of these movies in later episodes as to why we actually love them and definitely be talking about them more. So as we get into that, Brayden, please hit us with your top 10 movies.
So for my honorable mentions, we're going to see a lot of repeats for lists again. Oppenheimer's on there, one of the best theater experiences I've had. I did Barbenheimer twice in 2023, and I loved it. The Nice Guys, hilarious movie that more people need to see. I feel like it's starting to get more recognition now with the Ryan Gosling jokes coming up, but I love it. Top Gun Maverick, in my opinion, one of the greatest action movies ever made. It's just absolutely fantastic, and we watched it 7 times in the month of December, the year it came out on disc. I think most of those in the same week, because it's just so fun and rewatchable.
So rewatchable.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I love. It's just a personal thing. The Iron Claw, I love. Very rewatchable.
I'd probably put that in my honorable mentions.
A movie that just came out with theaters and streaming releases in 2024 that has quickly fallen into my almost top 10 is Hundreds of Beavers, which I know I've spoke to you guys about. It is this incredibly creative and zany movie that is unlike anything you will ever watch, and it's incredibly easy to fall in love with. And so it almost broke into my top 10.
I guess I really do got to watch this sometime soon.
It's on, as of this podcast recording, it is on Amazon Prime. I cannot beg you hard enough to go watch this movie.
All right, I can do that.
If Looney Tunes and Monty Python came together to make a movie about like the Oregon Trail game, that's the best way I can describe it.
All right then.
How could you forget about Kraven the Hunter?
Thank you for your rhino impression. The hit movie Kraven the Hunter. How could I be so stupid to forget that amazing theater experience where all 3 of us fell asleep at different points in the movie?
And we all don't like it.
At number 10, I have 310 to Yuma, not the original, the James Mangold remake version of it with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. It's a very different Western than anything else you would think. It's not like quick draws at high noon and a bunch of stagecoach robberies. It's a prisoner transport movie. It's just set in the West. I love it. I just love how different it is. I think Crowe and Bale are a duo that we probably should get again at some point. It's not a lot of people is in highest regards for Westerns, but it's something that I always loved. Number 9, this will be my comedy of the list, is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I grew up with my dad showing me clips, and more as I got older, of this movie on a VHS tape. And this movie is probably the movie I quote the most in real life. It is hilarious from start to finish, and I can't praise it enough, to be honest. At number 8 is my sports movie, Moneyball. How could you not be romantic about baseball?
How could you not be romantic about baseball?
It's a movie about the front office and behind the scenes of baseball, and it's arguably the best sports movie of all time. It's a guaranteed crier at the end when he is playing the song his daughter wrote for him. I will sob every time watching it, without fail.
I think that Moneyball is a sports movie for nerds. You know, we get to watch Jonah Hill go on about like averages of players, like hit percentages and stuff, and as nerds, it really makes us happy.
It's not even for the average baseball fan. Like
No, I mean I love
man
Moneyball, and
or
I
even
hate
middle-aged
baseball.
man who likes baseball. It's not for them because they
No.
just don't care.
I
They
thought-
want to see the Remember the Titans-esque style where it's just home runs every 5 seconds and team bonding.
I'll put this in consideration that I thought that watching them go on about percentages and whatnot, about like hitting percentages and getting like averages, was more enjoyable than actually watching baseball. So, I mean, that's
True.
That's something. Also, as a unfortunate Oakland A's fan,
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough, buddy.
yeah, At least we have a movie about it, though.
At least you got a movie
don't get me
about it.
wrong.
I mean, you can look at it that way.
The Washington Nationals are always going to be my number one, but the Oakland A's aren't even going to be in Oakland anymore.
No.
So at least I will always have Moneyball to remember that.
Bygone of an era.
Yeah, I could go. Remember when we were in Oakland?
At number 7, I have my superhero movie of the list. My favorite superhero movie, Captain America: Civil War. One of the first theater moments I can really remember, and that movie is so good in theaters. I think the ending is great. I think the airport scene is one of the best fights we've ever gotten in a superhero movie because they draw it out just to the point before it becomes tedious. I don't think they flood too many characters into it like we saw a lot in the later phases of Marvel before they started revamping. And I think it's one of the more realistic and grounded, gritty films that they put out, which are always their more successful ones. At number 6, I have Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, which is the 5th one. It's not the best in my opinion. I think Fallout is the best, but this is my favorite. I love the introduction of Rebecca Ferguson. Simon Pegg is hilarious in these movies. Tom Cruise always goes all out. I just think they have some of the best action and stunts for this movie. And this is the introduction to the Syndicate villain, which I think is the best plotline that they've gone with, and I'm so glad they're continuing it throughout the next couple movies. You can really tell that Christopher McQuarrie took over here because this is when they went from good and great to just next level in terms of being more than like a spy movie. At number 5, Ford vs. Ferrari. I love this movie
Good
so
one. Good
much,
pick.
and I absolutely despise racing, like in real life. I do not care about NASCAR, F1, Grand Prix, any of that. But this movie is incredibly entertaining. The cast is great. And like I said, 2 James Mangold movies on this list, but he's not in my top 10. But he makes some great movies because when he hits good.
He does.
Number 4, excuse me, Mikey mentioned this movie earlier, is Sicario. It's an incredibly dark and violent movie about Mexican cartel, and yet it is beautiful. And the acting in it is fantastic. The action is great. Denis Villeneuve is nothing short of a genius, and this movie showcases that perfectly.
Yeah, I absolutely love the ending to
the ending of Sicario is one
up,
of the most bone-chilling moments in movies.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, it was written phenomenally. It completely changes your like you go in thinking one thing about the film. You think that the movie is about Emily Blunt, only to find out in the last few minutes that the whole movie was really about Benicio del Toro's character.
Yeah.
He was really the main character of the movie just through the eyes of Emily Blunt, and Denis Villeneuve when he does that, it's phenomenal.
Yes, the ending is so good, and it like wraps up the whole movie perfectly. Only to fall behind, like I said earlier, in Incendies, which to me, it's a bit of a hot take, but he wrote the greatest plot twist ever for that movie. But we can get into that some other time. At number 3, I have Kill Bill Part 1. I guess I have to split them up, even though they're supposed to be one movie. It's the Kill Bill Whole Bloody Affair when you put them together.
Right.
I think this is a 10 out of 10 movie, this first part. It is incredibly great at paying tribute to like old kung fu movies. It's incredibly fantastic at Tarantino getting his like script writing in there and his dialogue. The bride is a great character. The villains are great. The fights are hilariously corny, and yet they work with his level of violence that he likes to include. And I never thought I'd go into a Tarantino movie and then see an anime sequence describing someone's backstory, but it perfectly fits into all of it. And I can say no wrong about this movie. At number 2, I have La La Land.
Yeah.
At the end. I watched this movie for the first time, like, alone in my dorm room at, like, 3 in the morning, and then when it finished, I was just a mess. A mess of emotions. Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are fantastic in that. The songs are great, the choreography is great. To think that we almost had to watch that movie with Miles Teller and Emma Watson as the lead couple,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that movie would have been.
I don't want to.
I mean,
I
the movie's
just can't
garbage any
imagine.
which way, so it's
All right, buddy.
garbage.
And then at number 1, my favorite movie of all time is Baby Driver. A lot of people say it's super basic, but I like to think those are the people that turn on a movie because they think it's an action, and then they just walk away and go do the dishes or something.
Yeah.
To make an action movie completely set to music, to me, for everything down to bullet casings falling on the ground to tire screeches, is a fantastic movie, and it's incredibly rewatchable. I love everything about it.
Yeah, I mean, Edgar Wright definitely has a very unique directing style. I think that, again, if it wasn't for the fact that I made my top 5 directors 2 minutes before this podcast, before we actually started recording, I think Edgar Wright probably would have been on there just because of how much I love Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So I don't blame him. And I think that
He's one of those people nobody will ever be able to replicate.
No. But before I get into my top 10, I would like to really take the moment to just to mention how the film as a whole, right? Just appreciate the memories that why we love movies so much, why we love it.
Why we love it.
As I couldn't help but when you two were going through your top 10. You mentioning the memories that you have. Brayden, you just said that you watched your dad showing you clips of Monty Python, and Joey, your dad watching The Godfather with you. Some of these movies are on my list for the very same reason. The memories that we associate with movies, and I think that's something that this podcast is really all about. It's just why movies are so important to us and why they are so important as a whole to society, and we need people who appreciate movies for the reason and appreciate the art of filmmaking into going into this career field. But with that being said, I would like to actually get into my top 10.
Movies are until Tom Cruise forced Top Gun Maverick to go into theaters, and I'm gonna go literally save the idea of going to a movie and not watching a movie at home anymore.
It's not only just just the memories that we associate with them. But you know, there's almost a level of like protest almost with some of them. You know what these movies are about. You know, going against the status quo, um, or movies about one's faith. You know, even as you guys said, you didn't go into La La Land expecting to cry, right? And you did. You know, so people, actors and directors and writers are able to make us feel things for characters that don't actually exist, and there's something beautiful in that. You know, so. But getting into my top 10, I think my number 10, to a degree, is pretty much a hot take already. And it's actually two of them. They're tied for 10. It's The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise, and The Patriot, with Mel Gibson.
Okay.
So, The Patriot with Mel Gibson and The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, both films that I absolutely love. I watch them, without a doubt, every year. The Last Samurai is definitely a hot take because a lot of people think it's terrible, and a lot of people complain about the white savior complex that has to do with the movie. But I just say that look, the movie.
I think it's good.
Excuse me. The movie just looks stunning, right? The way that they're able to capture the beauty of Japan is nothing short of a miracle, really. I mean, it's breathtaking. The film itself is breathtaking, carried by phenomenal performances by Tom Cruise, and I'm blanking on his name, but he plays the.
He's Ra's al Ghul in the Batman trilogy.
No, that's Ra's al Ghul in the Batman trilogy is Liam Neeson.
Well, the Ra's al Ghul stand-in, fake.
Oh yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, and of course, The Patriot, being a proud American myself, you know, it's just a movie that every single time I watch it, I just
You just love it.
I just love it. How can you hate it? I mean,
Yeah.
it gives me
Heath Ledger, great opening sequence in that movie.
yeah. I mean, it's carried by phenomenal performances itself. The ending's amazing. I can't really say enough great things about this film. But anyway, my number 9 is I know Brayden said that he wouldn't put it in this director's like top 3, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, I love it. I just love the film. You know, every single time I watch it, I thought it was amazing. In fact, when we watched it, we were attempting to watch it as a family, and my sisters got maybe 15 minutes into the movie and got up and left because they thought it was boring. They just couldn't see. They just couldn't appreciate it for what it was. It's phenomenal. In the end, the ending gets me every time when Cliff, you know, Brad Pitt's character, is tripping on acid, and the Manson family breaks into his house, and he just brutally kills them. And then the one runs into the pool in shock, and Leo DiCaprio gets up, goes into his pool house, and pulls out the flamethrower from another film that he used. Or he used in another film, and it's a brilliant movie.
I don't think it's one of his best, but I will say if you want to show someone a movie to introduce them to who Tarantino is,
Yeah.
that's probably the best one to do that.
You know,
Yeah.
as you said, as people who I mean, we didn't obviously grow up in the 60s like Tarantino did, but as people who love movies, it's easy to look at this movie and appreciate it for, you know, as an homage to film history.
Yeah.
My number 8 is La La Land. I love La La Land. It's a phenomenal movie. I have nothing else to say about the movie other than that it's so fucking. It's so good. I mean, it's just
So good.
I mean, I don't like musicals, but La La Land, that opening dance scene is just amazing. You know, much like all the other films, I don't have enough great things to say about it. It's a must-watch for everyone.
I think that's a big thing because you said you don't like musicals, and that is true. But it's
Yeah.
like this was a movie with a side of musical as opposed to something like Wicked, where it is a musical movie, and that's what you're going in to expect.
Yeah, it's so good. I
So
mean,
good.
I
So good. You
that's
can't
all
even
I
like
can
put
really
it in
say about it.
words.
It's just so good. I recently rewatched it not too long ago, and it made me realize how great it really is.
Yeah.
My number 7 is The Social Network. With
I should have put that in my honorable mentions. It's a
Yeah.
good pick.
yeah, I mean, it's the I'm blanking on the writer's name. I believe it was Aaron something. The way he wrote the movie was he
Aaron
counted
Sorkin?
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin, I believe is what it is. The way he wrote the movie was he essentially just counted the syllables, like in when they would speak, and so there was a sense of rhythm with the way that they would speak with one another, and it shows because the movie, much like Tarantino's writing, the dialogue is just captivating, and it's like, who would have thought that a movie about a lawsuit for the creation of Facebook would be actually interesting? And here we are, and it's in my opinion one of the greatest films ever made. You have phenomenal performances from Jesse Eisenberg and Andrew Garfield, and it's just so enjoyable every single time. Not to mention Justin Timberlake showing up as Sean Parker.
Right.
The only thing that really keeps it from being perfect is Dakota Johnson. Oh my god, dude.
I figured that was coming.
Where's Sean Parker? I just slept with Sean Parker. Oh my god, I love that film, and it has so many great performances, but that scene every time bothers me.
It does get under your skin a little bit. I always said if I watch that movie one more time, it's going to change my rating to a 10 out of 10, but I've yet to rewatch it.
You'll think, oh, it's going to be a 10
I
out of
think I've
10,
seen
and
it
then you
maybe
watch
3
it.
times, and if I ever watch it again, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Until you see the
yeah.
Dakota Johnson part of it, then you're going to
Go
be
back down to a 9.
exactly. My number 6 is another tie, but it's First Blood and Red Dawn, the 1984 Red Dawn movie. For the same reason why I love The Patriot, I love Red Dawn. It's just, it's something about the American spirit. You have the Russians and the Cubans invading this small town in the middle of nowhere, and these high schoolers take up arms and fight for their freedoms.
Which is really surprising how well that movie has held up, because that was really
it
made
does.
just to be a product of its time.
It
Has carried on.
Yeah, I mean they had a remake in 2012 with Chris Hemsworth, and it was not great. I think as somebody who as a military enthusiast, somebody who attempted to join, and they rejected me 4 times, which will be a story for another time. Story for another time why they rejected me 4 times.
Stay tuned for some more.
4 times. Yeah, stay tuned for that one. See what we did there, the name of the podcast. As a military enthusiast with the remake, it's cool. It's cool to see like the new, like how the Marines, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, they claim, oh, we're just Marines. They're clearly supposed to be Raiders, MARSOC Raiders, which is Special Operations from
Right.
the Marine Corps. How they deploy this unconventional warfare, and to me, unconventional warfare is genuinely a fascinating thing to learn about. But I'm not going to go into that side. Every people who will actually listen to this podcast will learn stuff like that more about me. But it's why I love Red Dawn, and although the remake isn't great, I do like the remake for that same reason. It's also better because when you watch the 1984 one, they're using obviously the technology of their time. The remake puts it in a modern setting. So you see
It's
how
a
they.
little more unrealistic.
It's a little more unrealistic. It is, but at the same time, you also have to see how they have to, adapt to modern technology. But anyway, and obviously, First Blood is probably my favorite action film of all time. It's just amazing. It's my favorite. Rambo is my favorite Sylvester Stallone series. He's Rambo's favorite Sylvester Stallone character. Rambo as a whole, like the Rambo series, is probably my favorite like film franchise, like action film franchise. And the first one's obviously just the best. And the funny part is, it doesn't have that much action, like quote unquote action
Right.
in it. It's relatively, like the other ones are big explosions and lots of killing. Like one person dies in the first one. That's it, just one
Yeah.
person, and it's on accident.
Everything
it's
iconic
phenomenal.
about the Rambo franchise is not in the first movie, whether
Mhm.
it's from
Yeah.
clips you see
Right.
the Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
cameo he made. None of that is
No,
in the first.
the only one
Nope.
you get is the iconic M60, where he has the M60 light machine gun, and he
Yeah.
wraps the chain of bullets around his arm and starts shooting it. Right, that's really the only one that's from that film. But it's, it also takes an interesting look at like PTSD, regardless of how true that iteration is. But it's great. Again, going back to Red Dawn, it in itself kind of shows this interesting take of how unconventional warfare was used in Vietnam, with
Right.
the special forces, and when I say special forces, I mean like the Army Green Berets, like Army Special Forces, the official name, how they have to operate, So I mean that their whole mission stuff is dedicated to unconventional warfare, and this movie actually does it well.
Right.
Coming in at number 5 for me is probably, in my opinion, the perfect comedy movie, perfect mid-budget feel-good comedy movie. It's Dodgeball. I mean, it's endlessly quotable. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. You have Alan Tudyk as a pirate for some reason. It's fun. It's funny, and of course, it's like, as I said, it's the perfect feel-good comedy movie because it's like, the gym's about to close down where a bunch of these weirdos go to work out. Oh, because we don't have enough money. Oh, hey, look, we can enter this dodgeball tournament. Yeah, dodgeball for the exact amount of money we need. So
How
It's not the most
convenient.
outrageous.
huh?
Yeah.
It's not outrageous.
It's
like
not.
Other movies
No,
are,
it's not.
especially with those actors.
It's very fun. It's endlessly quotable, and it's a movie that I can rewatch. Probably.
Forever.
I'll be honest with you. I could probably watch it once a week and not get tired of it. I don't, but I could. That's how much
But you could.
That's how much I love this film. Coming in at number 4 is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. So I'll be honest with you guys. When I made my list, I forgot Star Wars, and I actually had the Patriot and the Last Samurai separate. And then I went, oh my god, I need both of these films on here. Like, all these films need to be on this list. And, so I just merged the two, and I went, The Empire Strikes Back, because it's my favorite Star Wars movie. I remember watching it with my father for the first time. I still remember that day vividly, actually. But it's the greatest Star Wars movie nonetheless, and a lot of fond memories with it. My number 3 is Reservoir Dogs. I mean, obviously, we knew it was coming. I quite literally said earlier in the podcast that I watched it twice in one day. So I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the opening scene is captivating. And again, I'm not gonna really go too much into it because I don't want to spoil anything, because I think it's a must-watch. I really honestly think that it is a must-watch film for anyone who likes Tarantino, anyone who's trying to get into movies. It's that good. And again, it's hot take because most people say that Tarantino's best film is Pulp Fiction. I know a lot of people say it's Django. I know a lot of people say it's Inglourious Basterds, and honestly, I don't think Tarantino's made that film, but in my opinion, Reservoir Dogs is his best. His debut
If
film
you
is
really want to get into movies and you need an example of a movie driven by nothing but dialogue, Reservoir Dogs is your
Dogs.
go-to.
Yep.
Everything about it. It's just perfect in my opinion. There is that weird janky scene where the camera is kind of split in half, and one half of it's blurry for some reason. I've yet to figure out why. And
So
it kind of
was a snipping together two pieces of film,
Yeah.
physical film, using two different focuses, and he's just hindered by the technology of this time.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
the middle blurs out.
that's what I figured. I didn't know if there was any sort of directing reasoning, but it kind of, for that maybe minute, it's kind of it bothers.
It takes you out of it for
It
a
takes
second
you-
because it's a very intense scene that it happens.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it is a phenomenal film. I can't, again, I'm not going to go into it because it's a must-watch. I don't want to spoil anything about the film. My number 2 is a movie that holds a very special place in my heart. It's The Batman vs. Dracula. the 2005 animated film, The Batman vs. Dracula. When I was young, my dad and I used to watch.
I did not think that's what you were getting.
Really?
No.
I knew that's where he was going.
I knew Brayden
'cause I
did.
can tell you.
Where do you think I was going, Joey?
Not there.
Give me a second. Shit.
Oh, boy.
Ow! I just stepped on something. I'm not gonna say what. That's fun. Anyway, give me a second.
I did not think that's where it was going. But, I mean, again, like you said
On my
before.
bookshelf, it's phenomenal. Okay, I have all 5 seasons of the Batman because this is a tie-in movie to the 2004 the Batman animated series. I have all 5 DVDs of all 5 seasons on my bookshelf. I have that movie on my bookshelf. I watched that show with my dad. It was our favorite watching them. Justice League's probably my favorite show of all time, but the Batman has the most memories with it. And the Batman vs. Dracula is just, it's tie into that show. Not to mention, watching it as a kid and then watching it years later as you get older, you realize how dark it really was. I mean, at one point, the Joker gets electrified, it falls into the Gotham River with an electric joy buzzer on his hand, and it looks like he electrocutes himself to death. Only for him to come back and become a vampire, and at one point he's in a blood bank, and it starts raining blood. I mean, this is a children's movie, and it starts raining blood. It's weirdly dark, but at the same time,
Right.
it's very, very good. I actually honestly recommend. In fact, I remember one of the guys we used to work with, Sean, he didn't even know there was a show for this. He watched the movie and loved it. And when we were talking about it, I'm like, yeah, there's a show for that movie, right? There's this
Right.
based off of a show. And it has great references to the, excuse me, I'm blanking on his name, and I don't know why, because he wrote The Dark Knight Returns. Frank Miller. It has, references to Frank Miller's Batman Year One. It has obviously references to the Batman Red Rain comic. It's just overall one of my favorite films because, much like Monty Python and much like The Godfather, fond memories of watching it with my father. And the first movie, my all-time favorite movie, the greatest superhero film to ever be made. Brayden disagrees, but Brayden's just wrong, okay, because this is fact. This isn't an opinion, this is fact. It's Batman.
Start shaking your head.
It's Batman Under the Red Hood. Another animated film about Red Hood. The Red Hood is my favorite character because of this movie, voiced phenomenally by Jensen Ackles, who Bray and I are big fans of because of mostly Supernatural, although we also love him in The Boys. I love
The Boys.
I love him in this. I love him in this movie. He voices Jason phenomenally. I would have loved for them to have him play Jason, but unfortunately, he is in his 40s now, and Jason Todd is canonically 19. So,
James Gunn, we know you're listening.
oh yeah,
Please get on.
Please.
I'm sure James
Please.
Gunn's taking his time to listen to this podcast of 3 random people.
Jensen Ackles needs to be the DCU Batman.
And Batman. Yeah, there we go.
One thing that I realized when you were talking about Sean and that you mentioned was that one that used to work with us. We do all work together. That was one thing that we forgot, that we failed to mention. We do work at a store together. We'll leave that store out just so that way lawsuits don't impend. Hopefully,
Right.
You never know.
We've all known each other for a while. I met Joey
Yeah,
a long time ago when we were kids, just through connections of parents and other sibling stuff.
Yep.
I've known Mikey in school for 9 years now.
I think 9
and
years
then
at this point,
They
yeah.
just both came to work with me at the store, and then
Well, what-
just kind of was like,
and here we are.
hey, this guy,
Yeah.
eat this guy. We're
So-
all gonna be friends now.
The funny thing though with the store was Brayden and I were talking at school one day, and he's like, "Oh, I got to work today after school," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"I got to apply for a job." And he's like, "Oh, where are you applying to?" And I said, "I'm going to apply to the store right by where I live because I live literally 2 minutes away from where I work."
Yeah.
And he's
And I
like,
said, hey, they're doing referral bonuses
And
right
he
now.
went-
Make sure you
Yeah,
And
get
here's
yeah.
the funny thing. He said, "I work there. They're doing referral bonuses," and I immediately went, "You work there?"
Cool.
He's like, "Yeah, I've worked there for like I don't know, a year and a half now.
Yeah, so
unintentional.
that's where we all met. Well, not where we all met, but that's where we all became connected through that. And then after work we go to the movies. Not all the time, but sometimes.
We
And
try to.
Mostly.
we're all, whether it's good movies or whether it's bad movies like Craven the Hunter, in which that will definitely be a joke that continues to see throughout the episode or throughout the series. But definitely a great start to what we're going to be doing here. Almost close to 2 hours, which is awesome. So that way people can always go back, learn what we are actually talking about and why we're talking about what we're going to be talking about in the future. And again, more of the fact of there's a lot of different things that we like to talk about, and which is why we tell you to stay tuned, as that is the name of our show. So make sure to stay tuned for more episodes coming up, as we do have a lot of different stuff that we're going to be talking about. So any final comments from you guys as to what you're looking forward to, or maybe just final comments overall?
I mean, they should be expecting a lot from us. It's not just going to be a yap session for 2 hours. We have game shows that we have planned.
Yep.
We have
Yes.
the fan favorite for podcast tier lists coming up.
Heck yeah.
Brackets. There's all sorts of things to get yourself excited about.
Yeah, definitely tune in next week. It's going to be a fun episode. We're going to be drag racing along streets. Oh, wait, we're not? Oh,
Not that I know.
No, not that I'm aware of.
dang. Oh,
That's
well.
for your other podcast.
It must be my other podcast. I think the only thing that I really need to say at the end of this is, January 20th, everybody, college football national championship. Go
Notre
Irish,
Dame, baby.
Notre
Go
Dame,
Irish. Let's go. Go Irish.
Anybody but OSU, so go Irish.
Go Irish. Yeah, so this is going to be an exceptional journey. We've been trying so hard to get this started, and so with kind of being in the spring semester for both Brayden and I, and it's kind of a little bit of a slower semester, we were able to, be able to finally sit down and start this up. So definitely be looking forward in the coming months and the coming weeks for new episodes, but then also for when we get back to the summertime where we're all able to sit down maybe at one time, one camera. Could be pretty cool. You never know. So, yeah, definitely be making sure to stay tuned here on Stay Tuned. Thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you next week.